Alright, YouTube, David Harry here, and in this video I'm going to do something quite mad, I suppose, with Resolve, and that is to compare Resolve 17.2.2 to 17.3 with regard to its ability to play out certain footage. That's not the mad element here. The mad element is quite possibly doing this with 8K 60 frames per second footage, or more precisely 8K UHD. So I've got 8K 60 UHD footage, which I'm going to try out in an 8K 60 UHD timeline, and also 4K 60 UHD footage to try in the same timeline. Then what I'm going to do is flip the timeline to 4K. So I'm trying the 8K media with the 4K media in a 4K project, all at 60 frames per second, all UHD. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show it first under 17.2.2, and then what I'm going to do is update the Mac to 17.3 and do it that way. And I'm on a MacBook Air M1 with only 8 gigabytes of RAM here, so that is quite possibly even the maddest thing to be doing, full stop. Okay, so with all the madness explained as to what I'm going to do right now, there will be chapter markers with this video because it is probably going to be quite long, because I'm going to have to explain and show certain things as I go along, just so that you know exactly what's going on as far as the project setups and the parameters of the media and stuff are concerned. Also as well, I am an absolute noob as far as Resolve is concerned. I'm fairly much the same as well with M1 Mac. I'm normally a PC guy. Now, despite the fact that I am new to all this, I am very familiar with video and audio post, so I should have the ability to at least play out files in a timeline. So let's get on with this. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is look at the settings for the project, the media and such, just so we know where we're up to. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just check the version of Resolve, and as we can see, it's 17.2.2. okay, now I'll come down to settings here, and as we can see, it is 8K 60. It's actually 8K UHD, but 8K nonetheless, 60 frames per second. And then if we have a look at the media here, in fact, let me just open up the inspector. So on the first clip here, as we can see in the inspector, that is UHD 8K 60. So is the second clip, and so is the third clip. Now the first clip is ProRes 422, second clip is ProRes 422 HQ, third clip is ProRes 4444, and they're obviously all the UHD 8K 60 versions. Then these subsequent clips in the timeline here, these are all 4K UHD. So as you can see, 4K UHD 60. Once again, they're all the same, those four there, and they range from like proxy 422, LT, up to 422 HQ, and then finally 4444. Okay, so that's everything that we need to know about the setup of the project and stuff. Oh yeah, actually one more thing, I've come to play back up here. So there's no proxies going on, there's no optimized media, and as far as the timeline is concerned as well, we are in full res as well for the timeline. So let's have a look here. So let's see if it can play the 422 media. Okay, so as we could clearly see there, it can't play the 8K media in the 8K timeline with ProRes 422. And then if I come down here to 422 HQ, I mean, it's going to be the same here now for these two subsequent clips, but I'll just go through it anyway. So as you can see there, it's not doing that either, and it definitely won't be doing this one. In fact, it's completely choking on 4444. Now, interestingly here, I'm just going to go back here to the 422 version. And if you have a look up here at this number up here, the thing is, well, it's not there right now, but it will be there when I start playing. I'm not entirely sure if that's an indication of the frame buffer for Resolve, and if it is, then yes, it's telling us that it's actually buffered 60 frames, which is very interesting. Like I say, I'm new to Resolve, and also, well, mostly to Mac as well, to be honest, and I don't know all these intricacies in Resolve, but I'm assuming up here is going to be the frame buffer. So let's have a look up there when this clip plays and we'll see. There we go. Now it's really low, then it's going to go up to 60. There we go. So it seems to have settled at 60. Now, if someone can let me know in the comments whether I've misunderstood what that indication is for, I think it's for the frame buffer. So that is saying to me it has actually buffered 60 frames worth of video, so it's definitely able to do real time from that indicator, as long as I've not misunderstood what that's for. Now, interestingly, let's come down here to the 4K media. So right now what we're doing is playing 4K media inside the 8K timeline. Obviously it's all 60 frames per second, and obviously it is upscaled into 8K from 4K. So let's have a quick look here. So even the 422 proxy can't do anything there, so none of the others will. I'll just quickly go through them. I won't kind of hang around too much. Okay, that's obviously kind of like all over the place. 422 standard is all over the place, and so will 422 HQ be all over the place. Okay, and then once we get down here to 4444, this definitely will be all over the place. Okay, now interestingly, I'm just going to flip back across these here, and we'll have a quick look again at that number up here, which I do believe is the frame buffer. And the reason why I want to do this is because we're going to see that these are lower than 60 frames per second in there now, or 60 frames as a buffer. And I believe that's because right now Resolve is obviously having to upscale 4K to 8K. And I would imagine that for this type of system, that is going to be much harder than to play 8K native. So let me just quickly show you. We'll have a quick look at that buffer, or what I believe is the buffer. Let's have a look. So as you can see, it's saying 11.5. So I'm assuming that what that's saying is it's only capable of doing 11.5 frames per second as far as what it's got in its internal buffer system. And then if you have a quick look down here, it's going to give us a different number, but I think it won't hit 60. There we go. So 19.7. So like I say, what's interesting here is if you have a quick look back at one of these here, these are going to the 60 here. So it messes about a little bit. I think that's just while it's trying to build a pre-buffer. And then there we go, it's on 60. Okay, so I'm going to surmise at the moment that the problem here may well even be just because I'm only on 8 gig of RAM, or this could even be an indication of some issues to do with the UI, which means the GPU as well. So maybe it doesn't have enough GPU memory in order to draw the stuff to the screen, because you have to remember the GPU RAM is getting used for a number of things here, but also it has to draw it physically to the UI. So that could be an indication of what's going on here, because it does look to me as if it is buffering 60. Now, just before I go any further, I'm just going to change the project here, and we'll go to 4K UHD, still 60 frames per second, and let's see what we get there. Let me just double check that change there. So 4K 60 UHD. So we'll start with this again here. Okay, so very interestingly, that's playing quite well. It is obviously dropping some stuff, although I would suggest that at a push you could probably work with that. It's not so bad. It is obviously dropping the odd frame here and there. Let's go to the HQ variant here at 8K. And don't forget, this is 8K now in a 4K timeline, so the 8K is being downscaled to 4K. Okay, so once again, it doesn't look terrible, although it definitely isn't playing all the frames correctly. But once again, that number that I'm assuming is the frame buffer is full. So this looks very encouraging in one way, but I just think there are certain limitations with my particular Mac here due to RAM and stuff which may be kind of impeding it. For a quick look at the 4444. Okay, so that's took a lot more of a hit on its ability to actually play all the frames out correctly. But once again, it was hitting 60 in what I keep referring to as the frame buffer. Somebody's going to come up in the comments and say, Dave, that's not a frame buffer. What this is something else. And if that is the case, please let me know, because I've got to learn this. Okay, now let's have a look at the 4K media. So 4K 60 in a 4K timeline. Now, interestingly, that is also suffering certain issues as well. So obviously there's frames going missing there. But once again, I believe that it is actually buffered correctly. I think we're now hitting the limitations of this particular Mac, possibly. Although other people can confirm this with other variations of the M1 Macs at the moment, as in higher capacity RAM and stuff. Let me just jump right up here for the last test whilst we're in 4K to 4444. Let's see what happens. Okay, so maybe they're about the same as the previous 4K, which was 422. Again, I just think that we're kind of hitting a bit of a kind of brick wall here as far as probably the RAM is concerned, and more specifically maybe the RAM to do with the with the GPU, because like I say, there's got to be screen drawing going on here as well as the actual processing that's going on within the GPU. Okay, so that will conclude it for this part of the video. Okay, so I've now updated to 17.3. So let me just quickly show you that. So about DaVinci Resolve, and as we can see, 17.3 build 14. And I'll just quickly show the settings here for the project. So once again, UHD 8K and 60 frames per second. And let me come up to playback here, so no proxies, optimization and stuff, and we are not using anything to reduce the resolution of the timeline playback. Okay, I'm not going to go through the media, we know what it all is and all the rest of it, so let's just dive into this. So first clip here, so 8K ProRes 422 60 frames per second media playing in an 8K 60 frames per second project. Let's see if 17.3 can do it. Okay, so that's got to be a big no. Right, all right. I was expecting something better, to be honest. That doesn't look any better. In fact, yeah, it's about the same. I was going to say it might have looked worse, but it wasn't good in the first place. Let's just try this HQ media. It's not going to get any better, but we'll just try it anyway. Yeah, that's kind of all over the place, isn't it? And 4444 definitely won't be doing anything. Yeah, that's completely choked once again. Now let's just jump down here to the 4K media. So once again, what we're doing here is 4K media and 8K project. So the 4K media is being upscaled, which is a very difficult job to do. As we've seen before, it wasn't working. Let's see what it does now. Okay, so that seems to have been improved, obviously. Okay, that's interesting. If you know what, let me just go through the rest of the ProRes 4K files here. So that was obviously proxy. So where's LT? Okay, still not playing properly, but that is definitely better than what it was on the earlier version. So that's very interesting. Okay, I'll just run these out in and I'll switch to 4K in a second. Actually, that's the proxy again, isn't it? I think. Okay, here's HQ. Yeah, that's it's definitely better. It's still not what you would say is editable or real-time editable. The other thing as well here, I'd not realised before, I've inserted the proxy file twice there, but people probably would have noticed that. Anyway, so let me just try the 444 version. Okay, now in general, that's definitely gotten better. Right, do you know what? There's one thing I'm going to try here, but I don't find this to be any use really. I'm going to drop the timeline proxy mode down to a 1/4 resolution. Now, I've done this in the past. I didn't do it on the previous take with the previous version of Resolve. It's just that when I've done this in the past, it doesn't do anything for me. Let's just go down to, let's try with proxy first. Okay, that's really interesting. That's definitely playing better. I would say that's almost to the point where you could possibly edit with it. When I say edit with it, by the way, I'm talking from the point of view of a proper editor. I am not a pro editor. I can edit, but I don't class myself as an editor. That is maybe getting to the point where someone like me could probably deal with it. A pro editor definitely couldn't, because it's going to be all over the place too much. However, earlier on the previous version, I didn't do this particular test where I was dropping down the timeline resolution because it wasn't working for me. This definitely has changed. This is definitely working. So if you're just on the cusp of things like being able to move, you might be able to get there by dropping the timeline resolution. In fact, let me just go to 422, see what happens now while I'm in 1/4 res. Okay, that's very interesting. For someone like me, I could probably get away like that. It'd be far too frustrating for a pro editor, but for someone like me, probably get away with it. Let's just see what 4444444 does. Once again, very interesting. Like I say, when I tried to drop timeline resolution earlier on in the previous version, I wasn't getting these results. I didn't show it only because it wasn't working for me, but that definitely has gotten better. Now what I'm going to do, just quickly before I try some 4K timeline stuff, I'll just go to, let's see, I'll go to the HQ version here, and I'll just try some simple JKL stuff and whatnot, and some nudging and things. Let's just see how this responds. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, just your standard transport controller and JKL actually seem really good. The one thing that I've noticed with Resolve, it might be a setting more than anything, but I find that when you're kind of doing nudging and stuff, I don't like the way that Resolve is playing back audio. I use something different usually, and that plays audio back way better as far as like nudging and like, you know, certain transport control stuff is concerned. But that may well be something that I could change in the settings, but this is just as is. I don't particularly like the way it handles audio to do with the transportations and stuff like that. Let's just quickly go to here to the AK422, and I'll just try the same. Hold on. Yeah, JKL is just all over the place there, so I'm not even going to bother nudging either. Okay, so right now in this AK variant on 17.3, I would say that the AK media so far, we're having like still problems with it. It's probably just the same as what it was, but it has definitely improved with the 4K media being upscaled into an 8K project. Now let's change it to 4K. Because I think the 4K 60 is going to play really well here by the looks of things. Let's see what the 8K stuff does. So, okay, so this is AK422 in a 4K 60 project. Let's just go for it, see what happens. Okay, Right, that's it. That definitely is a marked improvement without a shadow of a doubt. Let me go to HQ here. Let me test that. Yeah, that's definitely improved. There's still the odd frame going weird here and there, but you have to remember this is 8K inside 4K, so it's 8K being downscaled. Let's just see what 4444 does. Okay, pretty useless for a pro editor, but it has improved from where it was. Now let me just jump down here to the 4K stuff. In fact, let me just go straight to the HQ media. Okay, massive improvements as far as I'm concerned. I've got some thoughts here that I'm going to get into at the end of the video as part of a summary, right? But right now, I am definitely seeing marked improvements without a shadow of a doubt. And I think I've got a good idea as to why the 8K stuff is doing what it's doing. There's definitely better processing going on without a shadow of a doubt, because we're seeing that within the 4K 60 footage. Let me just do some quick JKL stuff here, hold on. Okay, JKL is really quick and the nudge functions are really quick. The response from, say, hitting the key to getting a response from the timeline, that latency that you would get on any NLE, this is really short at the moment. It is really good. Right now, what I'm doing here, 4K 60 ProRes 422 within a 4K 60 project, this is definitely something that a pro editor could definitely work with, and for someone like me this is well good enough. Now just last quick test here, let's just try 4444. Okay, once again, that is a huge improvement as far as I'm concerned. Yes, there are still definitely little frames being dropped left, right and center and stuff like that, but that is a way better response. This is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, gotten better. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to jump to a summary and give my thoughts and ideas as well here. Okay, so to an end summary then, and the first thing I would like to do is to thank anybody who's gotten this far into the video, because it has been a long video. Now the reason why it's got to be a long video is because there's a lot of things to explain as I'm going through, and things like the, you know, the setup for the project and certain other parameters and stuff like that. And rather than just trying to play things for 3 seconds, you know, you have to give footage a little bit of time to play through, just so you can understand what's going on with it and stuff. Now whilst I appreciate this wasn't edited, it definitely will have been something that will have given people a really good idea as to the file format being used and its ability to be played in the timeline, which is the first stage for anything as far as an edit is concerned. Now also as well, I'd have to also say I was probably like a little bit over enthusiastic when I did the 17.3 bit. Now 17.3 is definitely an upgrade or an update that's noticeable. Was it as noticeable as what I was trying to make out? Probably not. I was just dead excited because there were differences, but it's differences that you can feel nonetheless. I want to say feel. I was feeling it on the keyboard, maybe more so as well, and it was definitely a difference which I could definitely substantiate. Also, we could see it as well within the footage, maybe not as massive as what I was trying to make out, but it definitely was there. Now, to address the madness of all this, what we've just seen there is 8K 60 for the best part in a whole bunch of those tests there. by rights, you should not be expecting to play that type of footage on a simple system like a MacBook Air M1. It's ridiculous that it can go anywhere near that. Now, that's at 60 frames per second. I will be doing other stuff as well in the future with, say, 24 frames, because I think it might do that. Now, the thing is as well, as I was doing all that, you've got to remember, again, what type of computer that I'm using for this, and it only had 8 gigabytes of RAM. So this is the thing actually that I want to kind of concentrate on right now within the summary. I'll try not to drag it out. I think most of the issues that I was having there was down to a lack of RAM to do with buffering certain stuff, and not necessarily buffering the already rendered frames, because that thing that I kept on talking about, which I do believe is the buffer frame count, that was shown to be quite healthy. Now, I think, and maybe somebody can let me know this, and maybe I'll see somebody else do a similar video on YouTube, but if you're using 16 gigabytes of RAM, I think that might be where it comes into it, because you have to remember here with these M1 Macs, there's no dedicated RAM for the GPU system. So as far as the GPU is concerned, it's constantly trying to steal RAM from the main pool of RAM, and 8 gigabytes to do all of that is just, you shouldn't be able to do it. This is the point that I'm getting at. So 8 gigabytes really shouldn't be able to do that. I understand that there's been a ton of optimization, and we are dealing with code that's specifically written for the SoC and stuff like that. So, you know, Mac OS being specifically written for the M1 processor. However, things have to give at some point, and I do believe that's where the RAM would come into it. So I think people might actually see slightly better again than what they've just seen there if it was on 16 gigabytes of RAM. And I do believe the main problem here is one of buffering and kind of RAM allocation as well. Anyways, I think that'll probably be everything that I need to say in this video. But what I am going to do is kind of push the boundaries a bit more, but with lower frame rate footage as well. And I will also try out some H.265 footage as well at 8K, so probably 8K 24 or 8K 25. So, you know, if you found this video of any interest, you might want to keep an eye out for the other videos. I'll try not to be as long as I was with this. In fact, I won't be as long as what I was with this video, because I won't be comparing two different versions of Resolve. I'll be just concentrating on particular types of media within Resolve 17.3 at various frame rates and various resolutions and such. Anywho, that'll do it for this video. And if you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to my channel, get all of that bell notification icon thing, and possibly share the video, because I'm trying to get to 1 million subscribers at the end of the week. Anyways, I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.